December 20th, 1943, somewhere over Bremen, Germany, and the sky is about to teach a 19-year-old kid from West Virginia something that will change air combat forever. Second Lieutenant Charles Chuck Yeager is gripping his control stick so hard his knuckles have gone white, banking his P-51 Mustang hard left as tracer rounds slice through the freezing air exactly where his cockpit was just a heartbeat before. This is only his 8th combat mission, and his hands are shaking badly enough that he can barely keep the stick steady. The Messerschmitt Bf 109 locked onto his tail is flown by a man named Ludwig Franziskett, a veteran hunter with 11 confirmed kills who has been stalking Allied pilots for 2 solid years and knows every trick, every maneuver, every desperate move a pilot can make when death is seconds away. Franziskett is already positioning for the killing shot, and by every calculation, every piece of training, every word in the manual, Chuck Yeager should be dead in the next 30 seconds. Standard doctrine is crystal clear on this. You maintain formation, you execute coordinated attacks, you never ever break away from your wingman. The Army Air Forces has spent millions of dollars developing these tactics, and fighter groups practice them until they can fly them in their sleep because survival depends on discipline and following the manual to the letter. Yeager's fuel gauge is dropping fast, his ammunition counter shows just 60 rounds remaining, and the nearest friendly aircraft is 3 miles away, which might as well be 300. What Franziskett does not know, what nobody knows yet, is that Yeager is about to do something so reckless and so completely counterintuitive that senior officers will dismiss it as impossible when he reports it later. Something that will accidentally revolutionize air combat for the next 80 years. But first we need to understand why American fighter pilots were dying at absolutely catastrophic rates in the winter of 1943. By December of that year, the United States Army Air Forces is facing a crisis that threatens the entire strategic bombing campaign over Europe, and the numbers are devastating in ways that are hard to comprehend. During the Schweinfurt-Regensburg raids back in August 1943, the 8th Air Force loses 60 bombers in a single day, which means 600 men killed or captured in just one mission. In October, another raid on Schweinfurt costs 62 more bombers, and the loss rate exceeds 20% on deep penetration missions, which means that at this rate bomber crews have virtually no chance of surviving their required 25 mission tour. The problem is range, pure and simple. P-47 Thunderbolts and P-38 Lightnings can escort bombers to the German border, but they lack the fuel capacity to penetrate deep into German territory. And once the escorts turn back, the Luftwaffe fighters swarm the bomber formations like wolves on wounded prey. The solution seems obvious enough: develop long-range escort fighters, and North American aviation has delivered the P-51 Mustang, which has the range to reach Berlin and back. But there is a second, more insidious problem that nobody is talking about. American fighter doctrine is fundamentally flawed. The tactics manual written by senior officers who learned to fly back in the 1920s emphasizes formation flying and coordinated attacks, and fighter pilots are taught to maintain strict positioning, execute textbook maneuvers, and never break formation discipline. Individual initiative is actively discouraged, and the manual is treated like gospel. German pilots, meanwhile, are destroying American fighters using a completely different approach. Luftwaffe doctrine refined through years of brutal combat over Spain, Poland, France, and Russia emphasizes aggressive individual initiative, and German aces like Adolf Galland and Gunther Rall have developed the Finger Four formation and energy fighting tactics that give them enormous advantages. The kill ratio tells the whole story. In late 1943 experienced Luftwaffe, pilots are averaging 3 to 4 kills for every aircraft they lose, and some aces like Egon Mayer and Walter Nowotny have kill ratios exceeding 10 to 1. American fighter commanders know something is wrong because after-action reports consistently show American pilots being outmaneuvered despite flying aircraft with comparable or even superior performance. But the solution eludes them. More training in formation flying does not help, neither does stricter adherence to the manual, and the consensus among senior officers is clear. American pilots need better aircraft, more flight hours, and stricter discipline. The tactics are sound, the problem must be execution. This assumption is about to be shattered by a teenager from Hamlin, West Virginia, who barely graduated from high school. Charles Elwood Yeager is not supposed to be here at all. He grows up in the Appalachian foothills during the Great Depression, and his family is poor in the way that only Depression-era Appalachia understands. His father works in the coal mines and natural gas fields, and Chuck hunts squirrels and rabbits to put actual food on the table, developing exceptional eyesight and hand-eye coordination in the process. He can spot a squirrel in a tree at 300 yards, which is the kind of skill you do not get from a classroom. He enlists in the Army Air Forces in September 1941 as an aircraft mechanic with no college education, no wealthy family connections, no prior flying experience whatsoever, and gets assigned to maintain P-39 Airacobras at Tonopah, Nevada. In July 1942, the Air Forces faces a desperate pilot shortage because the training pipeline simply cannot produce pilots fast enough to replace combat losses. So the service launches the Flying Sergeant program, allowing enlisted men to train as pilots without officer commissions. Yeager volunteers immediately, and his superiors are skeptical because his educational background is marginal at best. His mechanical aptitude is excellent, sure, but flying requires split-second decision-making and spatial reasoning that supposedly cannot be taught, and most washout candidates come from his demographic. He proves every single one of them wrong. At flight school in California and Arizona, Yeager demonstrates natural flying ability that instructors find genuinely remarkable. His vision is measured at 2010, which is twice as acute as normal, and he can spot enemy aircraft before anyone else in the formation, which will save his life more than once. He graduates in March 1943 and receives his commission as a flight officer, and by November 1943 Yeager arrives in England assigned to the 363rd Fighter Squadron, 357th Fighter Group. He has logged approximately 270 flight hours total. Most of his squadron mates have college degrees, many come from wealthy families, some have private pilot licenses from before the war, and Yeager is just the kid from West Virginia who talks with an Appalachian drawl and lacks social polish. He gets assigned aircraft number 43 to 6763 AP-51B Mustang. He names Glamorous Glen after his girlfriend back home, Glennis Dickhouse. On December 20th, 1943, he flies his 8th combat mission, a bomber escort to Bremen, and this is when everything changes forever. The moment of insight comes not from careful study or brilliant analysis, but from pure survival instinct when Ludwig Franziskat's Bf-109 latches onto his tail and Yeager realizes with absolute clarity that he is about to die. Franziskat fires a burst and cannon shells rip past Yeager's canopy close enough that he can hear them over the engine noise. The German pilot is closing for the kill, positioning for a deflection shot that will shred the Mustang's engine and end this fight. Yeager's training is screaming at him to maintain altitude, execute a standard evasive turn, try to reach friendly aircraft, and every instinct says stay high where the Mustang has performance advantages. Instead, he does something that is completely insane by every measure. He rolls inverted and pulls the stick back hard, diving nearly vertical toward the German countryside 7,000 feet below. The airspeed indicator spins past 400 miles per hour, then past 450, and the Mustang's wings begin to buffet as the aircraft approaches its structural limits. The dive angle is so steep that Yeager's vision begins to gray out from negative G-forces, and this should be suicide because everyone knows German fighters can outdive American aircraft. The Bf-109's fuel-injected engine gives it enormous advantages in negative G maneuvers, and diving away from a 109 is exactly what you are not supposed to do under any circumstances. But Yeager is not thinking about doctrine right now. He is reacting like a West Virginia boy who has hunted his entire life, using terrain, using speed, using every single advantage available. The Mustang's Packard-built Merlin engine with its two-stage supercharger performs differently than anyone expected at high speed. And as Yeager screams toward the deck, the Mustang actually accelerates faster than the pursuing Bf-109. The airspeed hits 500 miles per hour and the controls are nearly locked solid from aerodynamic pressure. Franziskett follows, firing repeatedly, but his rounds are falling behind because the Mustang is pulling away. At 1,500 feet, Yeager hauls back on the stick with both hands and the G-forces slam him into his seat so hard his vision tunnels. The Mustang's wings flex upward, stressed nearly to failure, and the aircraft bottoms out at 800 feet traveling at 480 miles per hour. Franziskett tries to follow, but the Bf-109 pulls out at 600 feet and the maneuver has bled off his energy. His airspeed has dropped to 320 miles per hour. Yeager levels out, looks back, and sees something that should not be physically possible. The German fighter that was about to kill him 30 seconds ago is now behind him, slow and vulnerable. Franziskett is desperately trying to regain speed and altitude, but it is too late. Yeager reverses, climbs slightly, and positions himself behind the Bf-109. At 400 yards, he fires a 3-second burst and 50 caliber rounds tear into the German fighter's wing root and fuselage. The Bf-109 rolls, left trailing smoke and spirals toward the ground. Yeager has just executed the first recorded high-speed yo-yo maneuver in combat aviation history, and he does not even know that is what it is called. He does not fully understand what he has done. He just knows he survived when he absolutely should not have. When he lands at RAF Leiston and reports the engagement, his squadron commander's reaction is immediate and dismissive. That is absolutely impossible, the commander says. The 109 outperforms us in every dive. Scenario: you must have misidentified the aircraft type. The intelligence officer's report is deeply skeptical. The gun camera footage is inconclusive because the dive was too violent and the camera could not track properly. Several senior pilots review Yeager's account and dismiss it as confused memory from combat stress because you simply cannot outdive a Messerschmitt, says Major Thomas Hayes, the group operations officer. Their fuel injection system gives them decisive advantages in negative G maneuvers, and this is established fact. The doctrine is absolutely clear on this. American fighters should maintain altitude advantage and use coordinated attacks, and diving away from enemy fighters is explicitly discouraged in the tactics manual. What Yeager describes violates fundamental principles that senior officers learned at the Air Corps Tactical School, and they are not about to throw out years of training based on one confused report from a teenager. But Yeager is not alone. Over the next 3 weeks, other pilots begin reporting similar experiences. Lieutenant William Wisner executes a near-vertical dive to escape 2 FW-190s and discovers the same phenomenon. That at extreme speeds, the Mustang's performance characteristics change dramatically. Captain Don Blakesley, commander of the 4th Fighter Group and one of the most experienced American pilots in Europe, decides to investigate properly. On January 11, 1944, he takes AP-51B to 25,000 feet over the English Channel and executes a series of high-speed dive tests. And the results are genuinely startling. Below 20,000 feet in dives exceeding 450 miles per hour, the Mustang accelerates faster than any German fighter. The two-stage supercharger designed for high-altitude performance creates unexpected advantages at high speed and low altitude. Blakesley writes a detailed report and submits it to 8th Fighter Command Headquarters, and the response is immediate and hostile. At a commander's meeting on January 18, 1944, Blakesley presents his findings and the room absolutely erupts because senior officers who have been flying since the 1920s are being told that fundamental assumptions about fighter combat are wrong, that a barely educated teenager from West Virginia has discovered something they completely missed. "This is reckless cowboy flying," says Colonel Hubert Zemke, commander of the 56th Fighter Group. "We cannot abandon coordinated tactics for individual heroics because that is what gets pilots killed." "Your data is flawed," argues another colonel. "German fighters have fuel injection and we have carburetors. Physics does not lie." The meeting threatens to end with Blakesley's report being filed away and forgotten because the bureaucratic inertia is enormous. Changing doctrine requires admitting previous doctrine was wrong and careers are built on the existing system. Then Major General William Kepner, commander of 8th Fighter Command, intervenes and changes everything. Kepner is a maverick who learned to fly in 1916, flew combat missions in World War I, and has watched too many young pilots die following tactics that simply do not work. He is willing to challenge conventional wisdom if the evidence supports it. "Gentlemen," Kepner says, "I do not care if this contradicts everything we learned at tactical school. I care about kill ratios. Captain Blakesley's group has the highest success rate in the theater, and if his pilots are surviving by breaking the rules, then maybe our rules are wrong." Kepner orders immediate testing, and over the next 2 weeks test pilots put P-51BS through extreme dive profiles. The data confirms Blakesley's findings completely. At speeds above 450 miles per hour, the Mustang's acceleration in a dive exceeds that of both the Bf-109 and the FW-190. On February 3, 1944, Kepner issues a revolutionary directive. Fighter pilots are now authorized to use individual initiative and aggressive tactics, including high-speed diving attacks. Formation discipline is de-emphasized and pilots are actively encouraged to exploit the Mustang's high-speed performance. The old guard is absolutely appalled, but Kepner has the authority, and he uses it without hesitation. The new tactics are tested immediately during Big Week, a massive campaign launched on February 20, 1944 to destroy German aircraft production. Over 1,000 bombers strike targets deep in Germany, escorted by P-51 Mustangs flying with Kepner's new doctrine, and the results speak for themselves.